Okay, well, everybody get ready for some excitement. We have some wonderful numbers coming up, and we're going to tell you what you were thinking all along. Mike is going to take us through the survey and anything else he wants to talk about. Take it away, Mike.
Thanks, Bill. And by the way, everybody signed the sign-in roster too? Good. Did you check your license class? Was there any updates that need to be done to that? Okay, in May, I gave you a quick look at the membership survey we did in the spring. And if you remember, we had 9 questions. The last question was, would you ever want to have another one of these surveys? And resoundingly, the answer was yes. But we gave you a quick survey results right after the tally of the results. But I said I'd come back and tally the written responses. So just to remember, this was the first question, which was, when was I first licensed as an amateur radio operator? So for John, it was 1970, okay? It's not, and what we were trying to do with this question was to get a sense for what is the age of the membership without ever asking the age question. Because you probably didn't get a license in 1970 if you weren't at least about 12, 15 years old, I would guess. Okay? And so the first thing you see on this chart is the bottom says, have you been licensed, were you first licensed in more than 40 years ago? And the preponderance of people were, yes, more than 40 years ago. Now, you can read this chart as half full, half empty, because if you tally up the little blue part, the yellow part, the mustard part, and the other blue part, they're equal to those people that are old codgers, right? Okay? So the age of this club is a little bit old. In fact, John, just to take a look at around the room, how many people were lapsed hams that came back to the hobby when they retired or soon before they retired? Okay? That's actually one of the largest growing parts of the hobby are folks who are coming in with a whole lot more disposable income than they ever had as a 15-year-old. So first question, a lot of us are old, but we do have some new blood in the club. Now, to confirm new blood in the club, the next question said, when did you first join Vienna Wireless Society? And again, without being able to look at the side things that say what the numbers are, but they were, have you been a member less than 2 years, between 2 years and 10 years, more than 10 years and less than 30 years, and et cetera, et cetera. So we have a relatively young club with regards to membership. That is to say, the old timers that started this club 55 years ago are pretty much not around anymore. In fact, we know the old timers who are still in the club, at least by membership, and it's 4 who are chartered members. And that's all we have in the club who are chartered members. Now we have a list of other folks who were presidents in the 1960s and 1970s, but we have a fairly large proportion of those folks who live out of state. Our older, longer-term members are in Florida, Texas, Colorado. Now this question, whoops, that was question 2. I guess I got excited and skipped question 3. Okay. Truth in Lending, I have this really cool slide presentation that I've worked weeks on that tease out all the written responses, because a lot of the questions had embedded opportunity to write cool answers to. And that's still sitting on my computer at home. When I transferred over to the stick drive, if somehow or another I failed to check the stick drive to see if it actually copied over. So I'm kludging this together from the presentation you saw in May. This question was, what elements of ham radio really do you enjoy the most? And the way I read this chart is, and you could put down more than one answer. And so this really became odd for how the computer created these generation, but you could select all that apply. And what you see is everybody likes to do something in every place. That's what I read on this chart, except for the red thing down there, which I have, oh, I guess I can turn around. Oh, I can't read that. I can't read that here either. Oh, I'm too new to comment. Okay, so there we go. Interestingly enough, going back to the first chart, we had nobody who indicated that they do not, that they are not licensed. Okay, we had, in fact, nobody responded saying they're not licensed. Yet we do have a number of members who are not licensed, and 4 of them, as a matter of fact, have never been licensed. And we ought to, I think, work hard to help them get licensed, or they'll stop paying their $25. So, okay, this is the first question that at the very bottom, the tan thing at the bottom says other. It allowed you to make comment. The question was, what part of ham radio did you enjoy the most? Well, this is the kludgy part of this. So the computer program that we used, SurveyMonkey, allowed you to write free-form answers. And all I did was take all of the 36 comments that were written on this question number 4, and I did a little bit of strategization, so those who said, I love CW were first. Now, I won't give you any biases why I might say why I love CW more than sideband, but there we go. And so there was a bunch of people here that said they liked CW. There was one very nice person who said he likes AM. Mike, was that you? Okay. And there is, in the top ends of the bands, there are AM radio stations that are out there. You can make contact with them. I've made contact on AM as far as Ohio. I thought that was pretty good. I remember as a kid, I could hardly get out of the state of Michigan. Digital modes came up quite a bit. Digital modes and software-defined radios. And skipping down through this list, is that big enough you can kind of read it in the back of the room, sort of? Enjoy working with WSJT digital protocols. That's like a mouse on a racetrack. But you can sure make a lot of contacts. SDR and packet networks, mentoring, monitoring, mentoring others, interface, interacting face-to-face. By the way, during the special event week, we had an eyeball QSO on Tuesday at PJ Skidoo's. We had 18 people show up for what is typically on Tuesdays at 11:30, about 6 to 8 people. So we nearly tripled the restaurant's capacity. They loved us, thank you very much. Engineering, design, testing of electronics devices. Lee, others. I want to dabble in the various aspects of the hobby to find out what I really interest me. That was kind of me and where I sit in my radio career after I lapsed for 40-some years. I like learning new things and studying how things work. And you get my drift. I'm not going to read all these, but in fact and indeed, we have preserved in a Excel spreadsheet every one of the 200 written comments that were generated through this questionnaire. So for example, question 5 was the first open-ended question. It was not set up to be able to do a statistical tally of what % of people said what people said that. The question said, in order for the team now to improve, in order to learn how we can improve ham radio experience, your ham radio experience, what activities would you like to see more emphasis of in the club? And there are a couple of these that are pretty interesting. There's like 60 of them. And this is a little bit of, oh, I'm sorry, I'm moving that table. Don, that's your job to keep that centered. There were about 50 or 60 people that wrote on this response, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'll give you a sense of them. Troubleshooting advice, build club projects, more on club projects. Remember, the only thing I did to this, all 50 comments that were generated are in this list. The only thing I did was try to categorize them a little bit so that things having to do with projects sorted together, things having to do with AM transmissions sorted together, etc. Club projects, the balloon project we did a couple years ago, shack equipment support, thank you, etc. I like to see tech stuff, gadget projects. And the reason why this is important to us in the leadership team is we think we should take these and make sure our programs respond to what the membership asked for. They asked for more technical topics. And that's a theme throughout. Hands-on meetings where we leave with something tangible. A Saturday workshop to build something. Okay? I mean, I'd love to build and set up a little SDR play thingy that would have some type of a switch on it so I don't blow the SDR out of the water as soon as I key my transmitter. New home and mobile installations. I have a few comments from newbies at times that they would like more educational material. Okay. One of them in here, whoops, that one's a little bit, we could work this, but you kind of get this. Emergency preparedness, anything that involves innovation and creativity, developing technology, shack setup, tips and tricks. Again, there's 50 of these I'm not going to go through. Here's a guy that wrote a book. This is a hard one because the club is fortunate enough to offer top quality presentations, yada, yada, yada. But I am sure that introductory or upgrade classes, Pete, where did Pete go? Introductory or upgrade classes would be available. Okay. And so anything to involve young people. I don't know who wrote this one, maybe my wife. That was a joke.
For the young people involved, Wednesday, the Halloween parade.
Yeah, well, that's getting them really young. We've been to schools. Sorry, Rachel, I have to do that. We've been to schools and set up stations at schools. There is a interesting net on Monday nights, right after our net, by the way. It's the Alexandria Club. They actually hold a traffic net for their brand new hams. And they by email before the net, they say, okay, you're going to simulate being in Roanoke, you're going to simulate being in Radford, you're going to simulate being in the Tidewater area. And they actually run through moving traffic that they've pre-staged that has to go from the Roanoke guy to the guy in Stevens Point. And they do that for 30 minutes. And it was actually quite interesting to listen. I mean, I've done traffic and I've watched traffic, but I've never seen it actually taught. That net does a really cool job. Remember in January, we had our place filled with 70 new hams, and we did a 2-meter net experience where everybody floated around this building, and we played net. That was one of the most attended sessions this year. So enough on question 5. My reason for digging you into this is because I spent hours digging into this, so therefore you get the opportunity to spend 5 minutes looking at some of these. Because I believe the program committee next year needs to look at this, as well as all of us. Let's see. There was a second open question. It was open question number 6. Is there a program or activity that you would like to provide or organize for the club? And the key here was, don't just suggest an idea, but come to the table willing to do it. And here's some of the topics that came out. Group build of a 1 gigahertz spectrum analyzer. Okay. I think the club should sponsor lessons, ham radio licenses. Pete, back to that. Okay. An echo link repeater. I will help wherever I can, but I'm not smart enough to know what to do. Oh, that's not quite what it says. But it was another book answer. Let's see.
Now, is this all this reference information on the website? Or?
Yep, it will be after tonight. Yeah, it should have been before, and then I would have been able to pull this down. But the whole idea of this is I want to preserve it, and I want to spend some time looking at this. These were pretty much, if you will, glad to happy questions at the front end. They were questions like, what would you do Oh, here's a guy that used all capital letters. We used to fund 2 scholarships a year. I believe the club should do that again. What do you think of that idea?
I remember when we did do it.
Yeah.
The issue was the people that applied for it were not U.S.
Okay. Well, and I'll tell you this. Last year, the QCWA, the really geezers guys, and their club, and that's not a quite fair statement for those guys because they do a lot and they are very fortunate to have a very, very large scholarship fund. I tried to get 2 of our students, college students that are in the program here, to make application for QCWA and was not able to pull it through.
They were uninterested, or?
They were too busy. Part of it was, and it wasn't enough money to make it their interest, although that could have been changed. And QCWA is a very good organization for ham radio operators licensed more than 25 years. And as I say, it's an international organization that is a very well-funded scholarship fund and an organization for managing it. We should try to bring back the relay. It was a great little publication. Well, we do a relay every month, actually every 2 weeks. Maybe it's not getting out through the general reflector well enough.
Or maybe it's just that people are expecting the old format with a PDF that they can print out.
Or just use all green print.
Or in green color, yeah, exactly. Ah, that's right. Yeah, we did have a technical journal. So I'll quit on this one to say that in this case there was only a mere 20. In fact, there was a trend. The first 2 questions had 30 and 50 answers to them. The rest of them kind of got down to 15 or 20. It was manageable for me to respond. Those were the only 2 open-ended questions. But question number 7, did the club need to eliminate just one activity? What would you suggest? Didn't have to explain those, did I? Move the general membership meetings to another night. We've heard that before, by the way. Let's see, mixed feelings on 2 meetings a month versus 1. And so I'm not sure how the board will, if you will, address these, but my feeling is there's some content here, and you can boil them down to really 3 things. We do a lot of good things well, but we may be a mile wide and an inch deep. We probably would like to have more technical sessions.
Somebody just take us down.
And you could read into that. Less meetings, more technical. The third comment, and I really do want to come back to this, we do a whole lot of things right. Because that was a responding comment that came out of almost every one of these. And so that was that question. We can go to the next question. Question number 8. What activities should the club explore to increase your enjoyment? This is similar to an earlier question, by the way, but we were teasing out of it a little bit different way of asking the question. Clearly, there was a question, we don't have enough time for social get-together, social talks. Although remember, December is coming up, and that'll be a fun social event for our Christmas party. Add more club picnics. What about it? Oh, sorry. Those guys. Let's see. We've been, interesting fact, sidelight. Last meeting, we had 12 live streamers join the club. Now that's high. It's usually been about 3 to 4. We get quite a bit of hits for the videos. It's amazing how many people bring down these videos. So talking in the mic is an important thing because there are people that do live in Texas and Colorado and Florida and other places that actually are interested in what we do. And maybe some foreigners, who knows. Change the meeting day. That was a prevalent comment that came across a lot of the answers. I guess this guy had his view. The club doesn't need any more of that stuff. Events used to be fun. They still are fun. Uh, but boring. Some TNT topics could easily be repurposed in the general membership meetings. We've seen that where the TNTs went more than 25, 30 minutes. So I think you see the trend here. Tech days, members get to talk, make, fix something. Ace Hardware this weekend. Bring anything that's broken into Ace Hardware in Fairfax, and they'll help you fix it. Well, my wife said, can I bring you in? And Echolink for remote folks. That comment came up a couple times. Maybe not necessarily Echolink, but some type of a digital repeater, internet-based. That's expensive, by the way. That's not your plain old home internet. You end up doing a commercial connection for that. Now, the last 4 questions, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this very well, so bear with me. No, I can't. The last 4 questions were basically, paraphrase, and they came out with bar charts like this, and I don't have the answer, the questions on this sheet right here, which is a mistake. I need to go put those answers so that they're embedded with the file, because a year from now people won't remember. But this basically question says, would you be interested in helping a new ham? Would you like to be an Elmer? And basically everybody's over there on the right side, which is the side which is saying, yeah, I want to be an Elmer. Or so that question got the response at least I was hoping for. The next question was, let's see, I'm going to skip that one because I know what the...
So do we need to set up some kind of Elmer matchup facility?
We do, and Kurt Denis is the lead for it. And out on the website, there's a place where you can go to, if you will, find an Elmer. If you're looking for somebody for advice on antennas or general, just come visit my shack and see how it works, etc. There are a couple guys that took time during the special event week. Instead of having hams come over to their shack, new hams come over to their shack, they literally went over to their shack and operated their radio with them, or helped them run their radio. And that's actually a more powerful statement for those hams who have radios. And we have some hams who have radios but aren't masters in how to make them work. I was one of those guys. I went over to one guy and said, see, this radio doesn't work. And I tweaked his filter this way, and I did this, and it was not a radio I'm familiar with. And within about 5 minutes, he says, I can now understand the sideband signals. And I said, well, you had this way and this way, so I'm going to put it back the way it was. Your job is to use the filters. He had too narrow of a filter to be able to pick up the quality of the sideband. Then I found an AM station. I showed him what happens when you go to AM and what happens when you reduce the filter. If you will, you lose information across the spectrum, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of teaching that can go on that may not go on when new hams come to your shack, if you can leave them. Now, the last question is frankly the one I remember, because this is an important part. This question, oh, there's the question up the top. There we go. Yeah, are you interested in becoming a future officer or board member of the club? Now, notice that isn't way over on the right side. Okay, well, people generally said that I'm too busy in my career, and that's what this question was all about. Was over on the left was, are you too busy in your career to really be spending a lot of time playing radio? Or do you have other hobbies that interfere with you playing radio? And I didn't quite say it that way, but that was the implication of this question. So we have a lot of people that have a lot of hobbies, and radio is just one of many of those hobbies. And that's respectful. We need to know that. This is a question that you could read again. The optimist in me says that at least there were about 15 or 20 people who are willing to nominate themselves for a committee, a officer, or a board member. And why that is important is our next meeting on November 9th is our annual business meeting. And Leon is taking nominations for 3 board positions that are open. And you 20 guys in there, guys and gals, hopefully will consider self-nominating or having somebody nominate you for that board position. So that wraps up what I had to say. Unfortunately, the best looking slides in the whole world are left on my desktop at home, so I'll put those on the website under presentations tonight. I almost did it this afternoon, and I said, no, that would be premature. I should give the presentation before I put it there. So I had to kludge this together from the raw data. The real presentation still preserves all the data because I want the data to be held. We probably won't do a membership survey next year or even the year after that. We have enough information here to work off of and make change that is meaningful change, that is stuff that you all want to do. And how the board and the officers do that is up to the board and the officers as they address this. And they have copies of the actual spreadsheet with all of the details. And so that's my presentation. I hope you come back to the very, very fun annual business meeting next week, next 2 weeks or 3 weeks, whenever it is, because frankly, we only do that once a year, and I think it's very important to make sure your club is being managed and led the way that you want it managed and led. So that's where I'm at. Bill, are you here, or did you? Okay, there you are. I'm done. Okay. Questions, I guess. Yeah, no, I didn't. I'll take questions. It was an anonymous survey. I can't tell. The 100 people answered the survey out of a club size of roughly 200. But let's really understand the roughly 200. There's about 30 or so members of that are past presidents and the like that aren't active in the club at this point in time. So if you will, if you think about it, a typical meeting is around 50 people. And so we captured people that probably are not typically going to the meetings when we got to 100. We had about 200 written comments. And one thing I haven't done, I don't know if I'm going to do this, but is cross-analyze between the answers of the various questions. So how many times did somebody say, let's not have a meeting on a Friday night, that's date night? And I've tried to convince my wife to come here for date, but she has said not.
Suggested the same alternate night.
Nobody gave a better night. They just said a better night is Friday than Friday night, but nobody gave a specific night. And you know the problem is everybody will have there's going to always be a problem with the date, no matter what day of the week you have it. Yes, sir, John. Turn that off.
About 200 people to participate. That's pretty good.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was statistically, if I had more than 35 people, I was going to have a meaningful survey. I had way more than 35 people. We had more than 35 people within the first 3 days of the survey. So the survey was well responded to, and I think the results are meaningful. I think the results, if I were to summarize them, are simple. People are generally pleased with the meetings we hold and the activities that we provide. One of the questions was, what new activity would you do? And somebody said, run a special event station. We ran a special event station. Now, we ran a special event station in 2016. In fact, based on the Logbook of the World, we've done 6 special event stations since we've created the Logbook of the World site for HTA. And we had K1, T, K something, K6 something, which is the bear dens thing. But there were 4 others out there that we've done. This one had 960 contacts. Doug, what did we do for bear den? Do you remember the total number of contacts? 1,800. And that was one 24-hour period. 5 stations running simultaneously. What did we have this time? We only had 2 event stations on Saturday the first week, no, Sunday the first week, and Saturday the next week. Okay? We only had 2 events, and they ran probably 8 to 10 hours each. Okay? 12, okay, so that was a 24-hour period roughly in those 2 days. I can't tell how many duplicates, but I have a suspicion there were about 100 duplicate stations operated. And I'm not sure where that duplication occurred, but 900 still is respectable. And what we did get, as I said, we had 13, I know of 13 individual operators who contributed logs to the event. So and one was Pete and one was Doug. So we had a lot of people participating. Could we have had more? Yeah. Other questions and comments?